Hey ladies and gentlemen, this is Strategy Joe and welcome back to another Victoria 3 Dev Diary. Today we'll be taking a look at Dev Diary number 2, Capacities by Wissington, which is Martin himself. Alright, so Ellen, welcome back to another Victoria 3 Dev Diary. Today we'll be talking about the three of the form of the main currencies of the game, namely capacities. The last one being money, which they will come back to, of course, eventually, because money is everything, right? So in the first dev diary, they did mention there's no mana in Victoria 3, and since that dev diary, the one we're reading right now is about currencies, they want to be clear about what they mean about that when they say there's no mana. They mean that the resources in Victoria 3 arise and are spent clearly and defined ways that are part of the simulation, not from an overly abstract concept or vague idea. There is of course some degree of abstraction involved. All games are abstraction after all. But we want all of the game's currency to be strongly rooted in the mechanics and not feel arbitrary. So hopefully capacities are represented by the pups, right? But enough about that and onto capacities. What exactly are they? Well, for starter, calling them currency is actually not accurate. Capacities are not pooled resources and are not accumulated or spent, but instead have a constant generation and a constant usage, similar to, for example, administrative capacity in Stellaris. And you generally want to keep your usage from exceeding your generation. Each capacity represents one specific area of nation's ability to govern and is used solely for the matters relating to that area. As mentioned, the capacities are not accumulated, so excess generation is not pooled, but instead there is an effect for each capacity which is positive if generation exceeds usage and quite negative if usage exceeds generation. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going ahead of myself. Right, there's an effect of capacity that is positive if the generation exceeds the usage, and that is quite negative if usage exceeds the generation. A country that incorporates territory left and right without expanding its bureaucratic core may quickly find itself mired in debt as tax collection collapses under the strain. So that's an interesting concept. Really depends on how they'll be implementing that option, that the quicker and larger you're expanding, like kind of overextension in Europe Universalis 4, will be made with the bureaucratic capacity. Interesting idea, just depends on the implementation really. Bureaucracy represents a nation's ability to govern, invest in, and collect tax from its incorporated territories. It is produced by the government administrative building where many of nation's bureaucrats will be employed. All of a nation's incorporated states use a base amount of bureaucracy which increase with the size of the population and further increase by each institution. So institutions such as education and police. Okay, more on that later. I was like, that's brand new information. Hopefully not an institution like Europe Universalis 4, but apparently education and police will be included. That a country has invested in. Overall, the purpose of bureaucracy is to ensure that there is a cost to ruling over, taxing, and providing for your population. Administrating China should not be cheap. Yeah, that's actually interesting that there will be a bureaucratic cost to run institution. What I see, like, you'll need to police different states. You'll need to educate the population. You probably can't wait to see what other institution. There will be probably some religious institution mixed in that. There is a constant cost to keep these running in the different states. So what I'd love to see is that actually if you have certain states that you don't care as much, and that maybe are more populous, but you'd rather have the people work in the fields and the mines, you don't need to spend as much educating these people, or maybe pausing. You want to keep it up if you just want to press them in the coal mines, but you don't need to educate them to all the pickaxe. That's what I'm trying to say. So that is interesting aspect. Let's just see how that will be implemented. The Swedish bureaucracy is currently a bit overworked, and the country should certainly benefit from another government administration building or two. So bureaucracy balance minus 53. Effects from 21% of bureaucracy deficit. Usage is higher than generation. Oh, so you're losing 21.4% of the tax. That is a massive amount of loss. Your total generation of 250 bureaucracy is due to 100 from base value and 150 from the government administration and the land. Your total usage of 303 bureaucracy is due to 5 incorporated states, 2.79 million POPs in incorporated states. You got law enforcement in 1 state, so minus 27, and education in 3 states, minus 83. That's what I assume these represent. So you could actually slow down education to restore bureaucracy on a positive side and probably get more tax efficiency. We'll see more about that later, I guess. When we talk about money, we'll understand more about those taxation. But there's one thing certain: tax and death. Authority represents the head of state's personal power and ability to enact changes in the country through decrees. It is generated from your laws. Generally, the more repressive an authority in the country, the more authority it will generate, and it is used by a variety of actions such as enacting decrees in specific states, interacting with interest groups, and promoting or banning certain types of goods. Ooh, I love that. Promoting and banning certain types of goods. Ooh, that's really interesting proposition we're getting here. Overall, the purpose of authority is to create an interesting trade-off between more or less authoritarian societies by shifting the distribution of power away from the pops into the hand of the ruler. Your ability to rule by decrees is increased and vice versa. The Swedish king has more authority at his disposal than he currently using, slightly speeding up the rate at which laws can be passed. Interesting. So authority balance plus 165. The effect is 30% excess authority. Generation is higher than the usage. Increase the enactment rate of new laws by 7.5%. I believe laws will probably be like the reforms and like societal and political reform in Victoria 2. We'll probably get something in the same veins. So your total generation of 755 authority is due to 100 from the base value, 200 from oligarchy, 200 from the national supremacy, 100 from freedom of conscience, 50 from right of assembly, and an additional 10% from the ruler trade, experienced political operator. Your total usage is 550 authority, and it is due to collecting consumption tax on liquor. Ooh, so that's like discouraging, I guess. Discouraging a certain good by collecting extra tax on it. The road maintenance in the land is 200, and road maintenance in the land is minus 200. That road maintenance is tied to the king's authority. I'm not sure about that one. It really depends what road maintenance gives you as a bonus in these specific states, because I really don't see like how that is linked up with the authority. The influence represented country ability to conduct diplomacy, and its reach on the global stage is generated primarily from your rank. Great powers have more influence than major power, and so on. And it is used to support ongoing diplomatical actions and pacts, such as improving relationships, alliance, trade deals, subjects, and so on. Overall, the purpose of influence is to force players to make interesting choices about which foreign countries they want to build strong relationship with. Sweden has plenty of unused influence and could certainly afford to support another diplomatic pact or two. So influence balance plus 530. FX is 100% or more excess influence. Threat decay by 50%. So if we're looking into aggressive expansion like European Universalis 4, which I believe is probably the system they'll be implementing, or something very close and similar, that will be the decay rate of that aggressive expansion, which is pretty good. 50% decay rate, always depend what's the base. Total generation is 880 of influence point. Mana bird. Yeah, I'm not sure why they chose Mana bird for influence. I'm pretty sure it could have come up with a better icon because that just reminds me of Europa Universalis. But yeah, we produce 880, 100 from base value, 500 for being a minor power, 200 from the ruler trait ambitious, and 10% from landowners family ties. Your total usage is minus 350 per influence, and this is due to Honore being a personal union, minus 50, and Prussia improving relation, minus 300. That is very expensive to improve relationship. Meanwhile, personal union is just 50. And that is all for today, so join us next week as Martin will be covering yet another topic that's fundamental to Victoria 3, buildings. That will be interesting. I can't wait to see more information about the buildings. So we did get some information about the capacities today in this beautiful little dev diaries. Hopefully you've learned something new. What do you think about the capacities, the energy type? Definitely not mana from the information I have. But I don't know how much better of a system will be. I guess once we get more detailed and actually start playing the game, we'll be able to figure out how good that system is implemented in the game. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. If you did, make sure to subscribe because I'll be covering more dev diaries. Thanks for watching and see you next time.